Okay, what I'm going to show today here is how to make the 8-point star that would be fit into the bottom of the bowl. Now my head's probably cut off, more focused on what's going on here. I'm filming this by myself, so it's going to be pretty rough. The 8-point star, we use contrasting woods, as you can see, bloodwood, maple. You could use bloodwood, ash, or oak, anything that's a lighter color, and then some kind of a darker blackwood, wingate, or maybe ebony, if you've got that. Okay, to get started, you're going to have to take and prepare your offsetting color, your contrasting color wood. In this case, I've got maple and bloodwood. I've ripped it to about 7/16. I meant for it to be about a ½ inch. It's a little bit wide. I'm sorry, 9/16. 9/16 will give you approximately a 3-inch across from point to point on your 8-point star. So to get started with that, the first thing I did is I made a sled for my miter gauge so that it will carry the actual pieces of wood that's going to be cut. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut a 45-degree angle on one of the pieces. And what we're creating here is these separate pieces are a parallelogram. So with that said, I want to take and make an extra piece of wood that I can use to line this up, and I'm going to try to show this, what I'm doing here. Since this wood is the same width and thickness, the contrasting woods, I'll line this up and place this so that it's flush with this edge. I'll take a pencil or a scribe and I'll scribe that line. Once that line is scribed, I will take and set that so that I've got a stop block, and that cut is a 45-degree angle cut, and I'll set my stop block. I'll make at least 4 of these. Using the pencil and eraser and hold down. At that point, I'm ready to, I'll just set this together so you can see how it would fit. Pretty simple process. Now if you get much smaller than probably 7/16 or 3/8 of an inch wide board, you may want to cut these out on a bandsaw and lay out your lines with a scribe line, rough cut them, and then sand them on your disc sander down to that scribed line. It might get a little bit small to work on a sled like this. Once you get that done, you're going to take and glue these 2 pieces together using a rub joint. Put a spot of glue on there, and there's one tip that you want to do is you want to rub it back and forth this way. We want to keep the glue out of this point here, or this intersection of these 2 here, because we're going to need to fill this with an infill material. So I just spread my glue, make sure it's nice and got good coverage. You don't want to use much glue. Rub those, do a rub joint, use it on a piece of granite, and then hold those together, set them aside. You'll glue 2 together, then you'll glue, once you get those set, you'll glue the next 2 together, and then you'll make a half of your 8-point star. and do the same thing for the other. You may have to do some sanding of these individual pieces. Just put them on a piece of sandpaper, on a piece of MDF, and you can sand a little bit if you need to. You'll come up with an assembly that looks like this. If you're off a little bit and something's amiss, something's out of alignment, don't worry about that. You can drill that hole out, plug it with a 1/4 inch piece of contrasting wood, and that'll make that kind of hide any errors that you may have in the assembly. Once that's assembled, you will take a contrasting piece of wood and you'll actually lay it on here like so. So we don't care what this angle is. If it's off a degree, it's not going to make any difference, because now we're going to take and scribe a line using a knife, and you'll go out, and this is what's going to infill this. So we'll cut this on the bandsaw, take it to our disc sander, we'll grind it down to that line, and then test fit. Once we get that test fitted, we'll glue that in. I'll glue that infill in, put a piece of rubber band around that, glue it in, and just proceed around. It'll take about 2.5 to 3 hours to complete the assembly. Once that's all assembled and all your infill is assembled in there, you'll probably want to take a compass, set a compass on here, and throw an arc around this and rough cut that, and you're ready then to sandwich it between 2 pieces of 1/8 inch Baltic birch plywood. Now what we're going to do is making sure that you can use either the fence and then a square when you glue this up, but you'll want to glue this so that everything stays fairly square, because we're going to take this then to the bandsaw after this assembly is glued together. We're going to go to the bandsaw. I'm not going to show this part, but you'll resaw this, and that piece will fall off. You'll be able to make at least three 8-point medallions for bottoms of a bowl, 3 bowls. You'll grind that part. It'll be a little rough, so you'll go over to the disc sander and you'll sand that. Take another piece of plywood, go through that same process of gluing that up, let that set up, go back to your bandsaw, cut it apart. Now you have to you need this square and flats, because you can't take something round and try to resaw something round on the bandsaw. If you try to do that, you'll most certainly have an accident, and it just won't work. It'll spin out of your hands and you'll get hurt. So be very careful and don't do that. And there are examples. You don't need to do 8-point. You can do other layouts of similar shapes. You can highlight and put veneer in there to show different length. Here's all just walnut and maple, and here's kind of a pinwheel, and then this is kind of a block setup that you can do. So you got all kinds of different ideas that can be used to accent the bottom of your bowl.